Web3 TV.
Hello and welcome to Web3 Talks. I'm Lisa Amnegard, and today we are joined by a special guest, Peter Brady, Associate Vice President at the Dubai World Trade Center and also behind the planning of GITEX. So thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome, Lisa. Thank you for inviting me.
How's your day going so far?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, nice balmy day in Dubai.
And you are behind the planning of GITEX Global and also the expansion for GITEX. So first of all, I just want to ask, how long does it take to plan an event of that scale?
Well, there's many of us behind it, that's for sure. I mean, for something the size of GITEX, you're really looking at 15, 16 months planning time per event. So we're in March right now, so we're already looking at our October 2026 event, just to give you a sense of the kind of planning timelines.
It's become such a household name, especially for the UAE, where GITEX has started. I think last year it was a record event, attracting over 200,000 people. So I just wanted to ask a little bit, what do you think makes GITEX so special?
Oh, that's a good question. I think what makes GITEX so special is, I believe, it's because it's always changing and evolving. So there's different communities, different events out there in the world, and you know they kind of, dare I say, kind of repeat themselves a little bit, whereas the DNA of GITEX is always to try to stay on the pulse of what's happening in the technology sector. So we're very representative of like cutting edge technologies, also against the backdrop of global trade paths. So, you know, you'll see in certain editions of GITEX that there's different countries presenting themselves, or different government initiatives that are being announced, or there's different investment trends that are being discussed. And then always we're basically talking about technology driving the next 5 years. So every edition is different. I think that's what keeps people coming back and enables us to kind of continue to thrive.
And Dubai has positioned itself as a global innovator when it comes to tech. So how does GITEX contribute to that strategy, do you think?
I would hope that we contribute to that strategy. I think that's ultimately one of the aims of GITEX. You know, our ambition is always to be the premium tech platform in the world, located in Dubai. Obviously, the benefits to the economy of Dubai and the UAE are tantamount there, because we're essentially bringing in hundreds of thousands of tech professionals, many of whom are coming to the region for the first time. So we have, you know, we're proud to say that we are contributing to the ecosystem, the development of the tech sector, the investment space here in Dubai, because people kind of put GITEX in their calendars, you know, a year out, sometimes 2 years out. So, you know, we're really we're the time and the place that people come to Dubai for the first time.
Yeah, it's already in my calendar, the GITEX Global in October.
Yes, yeah. Good.
But you're also expanding GITEX, the event itself. So tell me a little bit more about why did you decide to expand globally?
Oof, good question. I mean, so this year we'll be celebrating our 46th edition of GITEX, believe it or not. So 46 years here in Dubai. We've certainly seen, you know, rapid accelerated growth of the event, the impact of the event in the last 4 or 5 years as we came out of COVID. You know, Dubai is a meeting place for the world. It's an investment hotspot. Companies are setting up and building out of Dubai and the UAE. So, you know, we've really seen the event kind of speed up. And that gave us, I guess, the relationships and the impetus to take GITEX international for the first time. So in 2023, we created and built GITEX Africa, which is in Marrakesh, Morocco. And I'll be honest, we weren't sure, you know, like what would the event look like, what was its kind of growth trajectory. But very quickly in the first year, it launched as Africa's biggest tech event. We're just on the eve of the third edition, and the event goes from strength to strength. So, that in that case, it shows, the global connectivity of our trade partners, of our of all the companies that trust GITEX, as well as obviously the interest in the continent of Africa. So investment into Africa, opportunities in Africa, and obviously African talent and technologies coming out to spread to the rest of the world. So that experience, was then just one step on to the next part of the global expansion strategy. So 2025 is a really super important year for us as we see the launch of GITEX in Asia, with GITEX Asia being in Singapore in April, and GITEX Europe upcoming in May in Berlin.
Which I wanted to ask you about, because when we think about tech and innovation, Asia stands out. But when it comes to Europe, even though there has been a significant amount of investments, it's not really one of the biggest players in the tech evolution. Mainly people think about it's a US-driven story or an Asian-driven story. So what made you decide to launch GITEX Berlin? Some
misconceptions, right, about Europe. I think Europe, we rewind, it was the building block of the telco industry, right, which then, enabled global connectivity and all of our smart devices. Has it been the driving force of the next technological revolution? Perhaps not then in the last kind of 10 to 15 years. But why are we going to Europe now? Well, now is the best time to go to Europe. In 2025, we're seeing this kind of global fight for dominance on AI, and we were typically thinking of US and the very recent news of the Stargate investment plan. We had DeepSeek just 6 weeks ago coming out of China, Alibaba doubling down, tripling down on their speed and investment into AI. But Europe is really forging its own path when it comes to fighting that global on the battlefield of AI dominance. So just 2-3 weeks ago, the EU's plan for Invest AI, so mobilizing $200 billion of direct investment into data centers, into energy grids, into quantum computing, into AI gigafactories that are going to be sprouting up all over Europe. So from a time perspective, now is the most fertile, exciting time to go into Europe. And there's a couple of elephants in the room which are going to be addressed in Europe as well. So there's a consensus across Europe to kind of loosen the reins on regulation, which is again a perceived kind of hindrance. So with that loosening, we're going to see a lot more innovation coming out, coupled with the investment. And then just in terms of technological leads, Europe is really setting the trend now as we look, as I mentioned, AI, but quantum computing. So, there's $7 billion investment going into quantum computing in Europe, second only to China. Again, deep tech, right? So one of our main partners actually for GITEX Europe is the European Innovation Council. So they're the continent's biggest investor into deep tech. And so they're bringing, in partnership with us, they're going to hand-pick 40 of their top portfolio companies. So these are scale-ups and late-stage companies really, revolutionizing the world through deep tech. So they're going to be a central part of the show. So all in all, we couldn't have timed a better launch for our GITEX brand in Europe.
And I think it's really important just so people can see what's on the agenda in Europe. So what are the main pillars that we can expect at GITEX Europe this year?
Great question. So GITEX as a brand is always multi-sectorial, and we are always a global playing field, bringing in companies from across the world. Our ethos is always to be cutting edge. So GITEX Europe in 2025, we have 4 main pillars that will be reflected at the show, which will come to life with our AI Everything brand. So this is where all of the latest AI companies are going to be showcasing. All of the latest AI investors will be brought together under this brand at GITEX Europe. We're also super excited to launch GITEX Quantum Expo. As I mentioned, Europe is the second largest investor in quantum. So we're working with France's Indria, we're working with IBM, we're working with Finland's largest quantum computing company. So GITEX Quantum Expo will be the world's largest first dedicated quantum tech show of scale. So this is super exciting. Also reflective of the future of Europe is a focus on climate tech and sustainability, which is obviously one of the areas where Europe shows great leadership. So we'll be reflecting that with GITEX Green Impact coming to Europe for the very first time, bringing together policymakers with innovators and startups who are building the next kind of technologies in the blue economy, marine economy, in bioeconomy, all ultimately all leading to a climate tech agenda. And lastly, North Star Europe. So this is our brand that basically brings together investors and startups from across the world.
So I understand that Berlin is an epicenter for startups. So what kind of benefits do these startups have from attending the GITEX Berlin event?
Great question. I mean, yeah, Berlin it's the capital of startups in Europe. So we're going to welcome about 1,000 startups showcasing at the event. So we're super proud. You know, this is going to be the biggest launch of any startup show in Europe. Now, approximately half of these startups will come from Germany, and the other half are coming from across the world. Now, we hold ourselves to account that we are essentially going to accelerate their business. So we design the event to provide them platforms for access to capital and access to markets. So we bring early stage companies in, some very early stage who are testing their ideas and trying to find partners. A lot of early stage companies are just coming to find their first customer or find their first investor. So we have a couple of specific programs for them. I mean, they're most excited about the Supernova pitch competition.
What is that?
So Supernova, it's our global pitch competition. We're launching Supernova All Stars. So we spent the last 6 months going across the world. I think we hit 25 countries with in-person pitch competitions, bringing the winners from each one, and we're going to do the grand finals in Berlin. So they pitch across the 3 days in front of a premium selection of judges to win 100,000 euros equity-free cash from us that we provide. So that's a great opportunity for kind of early and emerging startups to test their ideas and to get some good exposure. What we're most known for in our history of North Star and GITEX is our investor program. So we handpick and are very stringent about the investors that can join our program in Berlin. We'll have about 800 to 1,000 of them, and they go through some intensive investor matchmaking with the startups. So we have a concierge team. It's not an app, it's not an algorithm, it's real people who are in the industry who are making these personal matches between the startups and the investors. So the startup comes on site already with 6 or 7 pre-booked meetings with an investor who has already seen their profile and signaled some interest. So takes all the jeopardy out, or takes the randomness out for the startup. Before they've got on site, they've already got their conversations with the investors. So that's obviously there for the early stage startups, but creating value for late stage startups is also what's critical for the success of GITEX and North Star. So through ScaleX, we've essentially streamlined scale up companies and late stage companies. We put them in a different program. They're not looking for VC investment, right? They're looking for big institutional investment, and they're looking for big access to markets. Where are they going to basically take their company next? And so we have a program for them across 3 days, connecting them with late stage and institutional investors, government partners, and big corporates who are going to help access markets for these guys.
Yeah, that's what GITEX has become known for, the collaboration between VCs and startups. And just in general, just having this very collaborative event and conference where everybody, 200,000 people can come and talk about the future of tech, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I love when they're talking and debating, but really I think when we become most proud and where we add most impact is when we receive thank you notes to say that you helped me meet my next customer. You help me access my next market. You help me access my next investment. So, that's where we kind of hold ourselves to account and try to make ourselves, proud and make an impact on the industry.
And are there any speakers that you're particularly excited about?
Yes. So when we talk about debate and topics, we always try to stay on the pulse. I mean, when we're looking at AI, we have last year's Nobel laureate winner for physics, Sir Geoffrey Hinton. So he's going to be giving a keynote speech on the opening days of GITEX, which is super exciting, quite rare. I think that kind of sets the show for the quality of speakers when we're talking about AI, not just from a business setting, but from a scientific and technical standpoint, like how are we going to adopt it? How are we building the next kind of reams of AI? So other speakers, obviously coming from the deep tech space, we have some of the biggest investment and VC groups from across Europe, as I mentioned, the EIC, but also Early Bird Ventures out of Germany. So these are the guys who, they're taking financial bets on the future of deep tech and AI. So there's no better people to have come and tell us, what are they thinking? How are they investing? What's the kind of criteria that they're looking at as they invest in companies?
Well, thank you so much for joining me. It was a pleasure speaking to you, and I'm excited to attend GITEX Berlin in May.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Real pleasure speaking with you. And it's not long till we'll see you in Berlin.
Oh, yeah, I'll see you soon. And that's all we had for you today. My name is Lisa Amnegard, and you're watching Web3 Talks.
Web3.tv